Okay, here we are back in the letter, and I'm going to talk about a couple things before we get started. First of which is, you may have noticed that the videos are a little bit erratic right now, and the reason for that is I've been working on something special for Halloween. And unfortunately, in its raw form, each of these videos is 20 gigabytes in size. So, the problem I have right now is, as of this recording I checked, I have 22 gigabytes left on my hard drive. So basically, I'm trying to edit these things and get them off the hard drive to free up space for other things. In case you're wondering how many of these things there are so far, there's 10 right now, and I don't know how many there's going to be in the end. So, my hard drive is taking a beating, to say the least. But don't worry, once it's edited, it's down to like 5 gigabytes each. And the other thing is, I don't know how good my voice quality is going to be here. I spent 45 minutes fighting Wager Master, and yeah, I cannot emphasize how much I hate that guy. But anyway, we are now in Rebecca's chapter. We can see that the relationships are such and such. We're going to try to go favorably towards Ash, and I'm going to skip everything that's not relevant. I imagine it's going to come to a crashing halt once we finally reach the point where Isabella's in the hospital. But there's really nothing we need to see early on. We get to see Kylie, but she's dead anyway this playthrough. We get to go to the open house. We arrive a little too late. Then we get to go to the theater, and we have to start siding with Ash. So I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to do all of Rebecca's chapter here. I'm going to try. It's just I'm not making any promises. This may need to be a two-parter. Unfortunately, we're at the stage of the game where these start taking considerably longer.
And during the open house?
So that made a positive impression on her. Overall, it doesn't matter because, like I said, I'm trying to focus on Ash. Oh, we found something new. Or not? Began routinely enough. Immediately after I read the news this morning, I called her. Offered to treat her to a free dinner to help her take her mind off things, because knowing her, this might turn into another episode where she'll lock herself up in her room. It doesn't happen frequently, she's grown sensible that much at least, but I might as well prevent it before we go down that road. The last time it did, less than 5 years ago, after the incident at Devlin Court, it took Ashton of all people to coax her out of her sulk. She is the one responsible for Miss Cooper's death, but this'll weigh on her regardless. After all, the woman was her mentor. It was only for a brief period years ago, and they never worked together again after, but she still feels like she owes the woman a lot up to this day. To my relief, she agreed, even promised she'll meet me at St. Gretti right after my classes. Though it is a bit odd of her to ask me to stay safe before suddenly cutting off our talk, everything's going swimmingly. What isn't part of the plan is her failing to turn up, leaving me waiting for hours.
Where the bloody hell is she?
4 hours from the time we agreed on, and still counting. Yet I received not a single call or text from her. This, after I took the courtesy and effort of sending her a message, telling her where I'm heading to when I had to leave the school. She could have done that too, at least, and saved me the trouble of waiting.
Oh, she can be such a child sometimes. I swear, if she locked herself up in that room, she's not going to hear the end of this.
Glancing at my watch only stirs up my temper further. Almost closing time now. With the exception of a few still in line for some late-night coffee and snack, or those simply finishing their food, the small crowd inside has started to thin out. Half of the normally bustling place is now empty, and the speakers have stopped playing music seconds ago. Still, I wish they kept it going for a few more minutes. I can do with some relaxing music right now. Especially with the pitying looks the manager and the one man and the cashier are giving me once I hit my second hour waiting here. The former even offered me up another cup of coffee for free after I drank through my second one earlier. Naturally, I appreciate the gesture. The woman has been nothing but kind to us in the times Isabella and I happened to catch her here. This time, however, they probably think my date stood me up or something, even if the reality falls far from it. Extremely far. Honestly, this is more like waiting for your child after school if there's any comparison to make. Although if it were Ashton... If we ever do go on a date, I doubt he'd ever do this. He may be an embarrassing friend to have for Zachary and Isabella, and has his odd moments, but he's definitely a reliable guy. Probably the only one I've ever had the chance of knowing this long, except for Zachary.
If he won't make it, I'm sure he'll at least have the decency to inform me beforehand.
Not that I'll ever have the courage to ask him, or anything of that sort happening anytime soon. I haven't even forgotten my poor attempt at a confession back in secondary. I wrote a short letter for him then, only for it to end up unread and hidden away someplace. I might have already lost it, in fact, after I moved out from home, along with that diary I used to write religiously on. But all of that's irrelevant and a wholly different matter from this. Besides, it's getting late. It's already quite obvious Isabella has no plans of her showing up tonight, and if she thinks she's getting away from pulling such a stunt on me, she's got another thing coming for her. When I called her this morning, I genuinely believe she's better than that childish part of her. But this simply proves otherwise, doesn't it? She should be thankful. It's only because of my own stubbornness and good faith in her that I stayed here beyond the bounds of what my own patience allows me.
And look where that got me.
I might as well leave now, too. Considering the loud blaring of sirens passing by outside, getting home tonight might take longer. Probably an accident. They rarely happen here in Luxborn, but not entirely unheard of. Most of the time, it just results in heavy traffic and a few roads nearby being temporarily closed off. Judging from the direction the police mobiles are headed to and from where an ambulance came from earlier, it's in the same route I take.
Joy of joys.
Without delaying, I gather my things back in my bag, shoot a quick thanks to the cafe's personnel for allowing me to stay this long, and hastily leave the place. Hopefully I'm not too late and the side streets aren't too congested yet. However, no 2 steps out, my mobile rings all of a sudden, effectively stopping me in my tracks. I answer without checking the screen, fully expecting to hear Isabella's string of apologies and excuses. A series of reprimands is already at the tip of my tongue. Friends or not, what she did is simply unacceptable. She needs to learn. She's 26, for goodness sake.
Isabella! I've been waiting for hours! Where the bloody fucking hell are you? We agreed on a time, didn't we? This isn't funny, you know?
But the one that responds on the other end isn't her voice. This one is deeper, almost out of breath, and talks with a bit of a hurried note.
Rebecca, it's me.
Oh, Ashton. Ash! Why are you calling me so suddenly? Do you need something?
Where are you right now? Salemwell?
No, but I'm about to head home. I was supposed to meet with Isabella after school. She never showed up, though. Why?
Ashton doesn't immediately answer, however. In place of his reply, I find myself focusing instead on the noise coming from his side. People shouting orders from afar, a few curses flying off and about, and someone yelling at another poor bloke. There's also the low murmur of what appears to be a small group of people around him. Farther back, if I strain my ears, is the din of car horns and vehicles driving past. It must have been assigned on another case, called to another crime scene, in the middle of the night at that. He'll probably end up spending time there until the investigations last, likely until tomorrow, without even getting any shut-eye or a short rest. My lips press tight at that, but I don't say anything. Any attempts to call him out on it before has resulted in an argument. The best I can do at the minute is keep these opinions to myself, no matter how much I disapprove of it, even if I'm not the only one who shares the same opinion. Even Zachary and Isabella has something to say about it. I'm simply the most vocal out of the 3 of us. That aside, none of those explain why he's calling me in the middle of his work.
Ash, are you still there? I'll be home soon. If this'll take time, just call my landline number. Give me about half an hour. I should be able to find a quicker route home, hopefully.
No, Becca, don't go home yet.
It's going to get late if I don't leave now, Ash. There seems to have been an accident along the route I take, too. I'm not sure, but I saw a couple of police mobiles rushing past a few minutes ago. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, do you?
Becca, about that. I need you to get yourself to the hospital.
Hospital? Right now? Why?
A hollow feeling suddenly creeps down to my stomach despite having eaten dinner mere minutes ago. Ashton's hesitation doesn't help either. Whatever his reasons for calling, it can only be taken as unpleasant based solely on his tone.
Ash, is there a problem? Wait, it isn't you, is it? Did you get hurt or something? I told you to never make a joke about that. Please tell me this isn't one of those...
It's not for me. Calm down, Becca.
Well, why the sudden need for a hospital visit then? I sure as hell am not sick. Who's it for?
Silence again. If this dilly-dallying is simply his reluctance or he's just carefully measuring the weight of his next words, I can't tell. For all his good looks, he can be brutally blunt even without putting a concerted effort on it. Within our small circle, unless we really have no other choice, no one ever trusts him with the task of delivering the bad news. And this is one, isn't it? Who put him up to this? The fact that he's dragging out like this only increases my apprehension.
Ashton, if you're just going to hum and haw for the next 5 minutes, we're better off...
It's Isabella.
Come again?
Isabella. Scaredy cat. She's... Okay, listen up. You didn't hear this from me, and you're not the one who should have heard it first, but someone has to be there with her, and I can't.
Hold on. What exactly happened? I was just talking to her this morning. Now you're telling me she somehow ended up in a hospital?
Yeah, that accident you mentioned earlier. It's...
Bloody hell, Ashton, out with it!
Just a few hours ago, a car ran her over while she was crossing the street. I can't give the details yet. We're still checking on the cams, but the driver fled afterwards. She was left bleeding in the road.
All at once, as though the wind has been knocked out of me and remembering how to breathe becomes a whole different endeavorment altogether. My hand makes its way over my mouth as I fight the tremors from gradually sweeping over me. Little by little, the memories of the last few hours rush back to me. Her asking me to keep myself safe, my calls going unanswered for a long period, and the passing wails of an ambulance.
She was still breathing when the paramedics arrived, but I won't lie. Her condition's critical. Concussion, multiple fractures, and internal bleeding. They said she lost so much blood, and it'll be a miracle if she makes it through the night. Damn it, when I find the bastard who did this.
What about Zach? Zachary, does he know already? Shouldn't we tell him about this too?
No, not yet. Don't tell him anything yet. Let's just keep the circle small for now. I don't want to alarm him. I'll tell him myself tomorrow, but I need you to hurry to the hospital. Can you do that for me? You're the only one I can trust with this right now.
Yeah, I'll be there. No problem. Don't worry about it.
All right, okay. That's one problem off the list. Thanks, Becca. I'll keep you updated with how things are on my side. I need to go.
He ends the call abruptly, without so much as a goodbye or a single reassurance everything will be okay. He doesn't know. None of us knows, and we can only hope. Amidst the fading of sirens in the distance, like the very life quickly slipping away in front of us. When my body finally moves, despite trembling hands and knees threatening to buckle at any time, it's only the single-minded desperation to reach her that pushes me. Please, please hang in there. The whole ward is almost too quiet when I arrive. No paramedics or nurses zooming past, no doctors and scrubs blaring out orders, or even patients moaning and whimpering in the triaging area. She's already been taken to the trauma room according to the overhead announcements.
Attention please. Adult Tier 1 trauma alert. Please respond to the trauma center, shock room 4.
None of this is what I'm expecting. The lack of chaos. With the air so calm and unstirring, in spite of what's taking place beyond this waiting room, so unlike what they often depict in the telly. Although it'll be foolish of me to believe any of those shows. There may be some degree of accuracy in it, true, but it's all often done for the sake of entertainment and stirring up people's emotions. Yet despite fully knowing that, I still crave for the noise, the commotion, the worried voices, or even the shouting. Anything. Whatever that will temporarily take the edge off my nerves. Instead, much like everything today, all I get to have when a trauma nurse finally shows up is an impassive declaration of, "She's in a critical condition, ma'am." Man, I cannot speak. Nothing I've not yet heard from Ashton before. He doesn't spare me another word, not even a single explanation of what they're doing to Isabella. And the next minute I'm being entrusted with her belongings, everything now smeared and reeking of fresh blood. Afterwards, it's back to that silence again, longer this time. With only glass doors occasionally whizzing, as well as the nearly wooden voice over the hospital's intercom for company.
Paging Dr. Nicholas Vogel to Lord William Ward. Shock room 4. Please report to trauma center, shock room 4 stat. Dr. Vogel, please.
But who am I to demand for more, when in some part of this bloody emergency ward Isabella's fighting for her life? In the end, no matter what my complaints are, what I want to hear or see, they're all useless here. I'm useless here.
Dr. Vogel, please report to the trauma center, shock room 4 stat.
All I can do is sit down and wait, go through every small motion to keep myself occupied, to prevent my mind from thinking of every ugly scenario this might lead to. Because as stubborn, annoying, or childish as I regard her time and again,
I don't want to lose a friend to this.
Not in this manner. And it's that thought I hold firmly to. As the hours go by, as the halls grow quieter and everything around me turns dimmer, bleaker, it's what I cling on. Along with a small plea at the heart of it. A muttered prayer, desperate and earnest all at once.
I've never been the religious kind. I don't think I ever will identify as one. But if there's some other force, someone out there who can hear, please listen to me just this once.
Please don't take her away. Before long, sleep claims me, fraught with lasting images of blood and a single voice on a vain struggle with death. Thus the waiting game begins. The following morning arrives like any other day before it, bright and clear. As if the world has completely tilted out of focus the night before, like nothing ever happened. It's a good day by common standards, albeit one I can't fully appreciate. Maybe I would have if it isn't for the hospital's glaring fluorescence that greeted me first, or my eyes still aren't rough with sleep, or I've chosen a more comfortable place to doze off. Even better, if I've gotten a more pleasant news than what I've received after waiting for hours on end. But times like this, you simply take what you can get. It could have been worse. We could have easily lost her, the doctors and nurses said so. But by some bullheaded miracle, we didn't. What do you know? She's actually found use for her stubbornness. If she survives this, it seems this will be the last time I'll rail on her about that. It might have saved her after all. They had to induce coma, yes. It may not be what we wanted, but sure as hell isn't the end for her, and that's enough. That's good enough. We can work from there. At least like this, we know in her own little way, Isabella's still fighting, and hoping isn't such a futile thing for us. Zachary thinks so. Despite having almost resigned himself to the fact that there's nothing we can do here but wait and expect the worst. Even when the uncertainty starts to have its sway on me, all he has for me are reassurances.
You did the right thing, Rebecca.
You don't know that. What if she doesn't want this? Do you see all of these? Wires and tubes and bandages everywhere. She's barely herself, clinging to dear life as it is. She can't even hear us. Doesn't even know there are people here worried sick for her.
The point is she's still here. Don't beat yourself up over what ifs. This ain't over for her, aight? I've seen people recover from even worse. Have some faith in her.
I do have faith in her.
You know what? I think this is just a lack of sleep talking. You been here since when? Last night? Go get some rest, Miss Gales.
But Isabella's...
I'll take care of her, don't you worry. We can do shifts if you want. But go home first. We'll talk about that later when you ain't looking like you're about to fall apart. If you keep going like this, you're the one who'll end up here next.
I don't know if it's the optimism in his tone that did it. But his words, regardless of the mood around us, some of the exhaustion finally lifts, enough for a soft chuckle to slip out from me. How odd. Out of all people, Zachary's the last person I ever expect to get a pick-me-up from. After all, we've never been particularly close. At best, we're good friends. We talk, we laugh when the situation calls for it, but admittedly, none of those will ever occur if Ashton or Isabella aren't there. It's not entirely uncomfortable, but awkward nevertheless. We simply can't seem to find something to talk about without those two to drive the conversation. Still, here he is, in spite of that gap or whatever dark cloud hanging above his head lately. I can't possibly reject his offer knowing that, can I?
This feels like a conversation I had with Isabella a few days ago. I said the exact same thing to her.
Then maybe it's a sign you should rest. Let me take over from now.
Maybe. But I'll keep that in mind. Are you sure you'll be fine alone? I'll come back this evening. So if you need anything picked up, I can get it for you.
Nah, no problem on that front. Besides, if I do need something, my apartment's just a few blocks away. Skipping a hop, that's all I need. Focus on getting some sleep. Let me take care of this for a few hours. Do it for everyone's sake,
Will do. Thanks, Zachary. If something changes with her, promise me you'll call.
You'll be the first one to know, ma'am. Well, if it comes to that. I hope the news I bring will be better than the one we got this morning. Crazy thing having to wake up to this.
I hope so too. I'll see you later.
I give him a smile before leaving. Frankly, it's a weak and half-hearted attempt at encouragement, and whether it's intended to be for me or for him, I don't linger over it. At the end of the day, we both need any little strength we can muster and extend between us, in whatever form those may choose to come. The door closes behind me with a soft click, at last muffling the ceaseless beeping from the machines. But I know this isn't the last time I'll be hearing those. A wholly different atmosphere meets me when I step out the hallway. Sterile, placid, along with the sharp, bitter air dangling oppressively above my head as I make my way out of the ward. It stands at a stark contrast to the room I came from only seconds ago. With the whole place like this, Zachary's passing remark about Isabella years ago rings truer. He's right. There has always been this certain warmth she carries around her wherever she goes. The sunny, sprightly kind? Reminds you a little of home and those childhood memories so often forgotten. Something I both envy and ignore in her, to the point of taking it for granted. But in spite of the circumstances she's trapped in now, it remains with her in that room, and leaving it is like a douse of cold water. Every thought, every responsibility, every worry I've set aside last night returns to me tenfold. Someone has to inform BRC, and there's also her aunt who works in another county. She needs to know as well. Her family in the Philippines, too. And though he never asked for it, I'm sure Ashton will also appreciate any news on her condition.
Bloody hell. This is supposed to be easy.
Call and deliver the news, as simple as that. Offer small soothing words, if need be, no matter how meaningless or how flat they fall in the other's ears. Yet my hand wavers. The moment I pull my phone out, my whole body freezes. I stop in my tracks and my thumb hovers uselessly over the names on the screen. Her aunt, her mom, Ashton. The letters on it flicker brightly, almost accusingly at my stalling. How would they react? How would her family feel hearing this from someone they'd never even met before? How do I tell them? What do I say? There are a million ways this can go, none of them pleasant, all of them out of my control.
But I can't simply pawn this off on someone else, can I?
Even before I agreed to be her emergency contact, I've always known the responsibilities that come with being named one. At a young age, I already did, and Isabella's trust goes as far as to put me in that list. If that doesn't say what she thinks of this little friendship, I don't know what else will. And now I balk at it?
That simply isn't how the Scotswoman in my blood does things.
So before I lose this sudden resolve or stumble back into another cycle of negative thoughts, I press down on the call button. Ashton first. I'll think about how I'll deal with the others later. Although I still have no clue how I'll open the topic, the news is still a far cry from a good one, but with him I won't have to worry how to best phrase it. Word choice and turn of phrase notwithstanding, ultimately, this will all just sound like an update on the situation for him. When he finally answers, however, a certain tightness in his voice makes me pause. Hoarser, rougher than I remember, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out he hasn't gotten any sleep yet.
Becca? Didn't I tell you not to call around this hour unless it's urgent?
I remember, sorry. Don't worry, this'll be quick. It isn't urgent, but I thought you should... You deserve to know about this as soon as possible.
Can it wait? At least until lunch?
It can, but I'm about to...
Rebecca, I'm in the middle of something right now. I can't really talk over the phone. I'll just call you back.
The shuffling of papers follows his dismissive note. He hasn't dropped the call yet, but his impatience and inattentiveness are clear. There's no need to guess, I can almost see it. The small scowl over his features, the way he reaches up with a hand to pinch the bridge of his nose when he can't figure something out. His quick, sharp movements while he checks and reads through everything with an enormous focus. Generally, I'd ignore it. I called him for an entirely different reason. Even so, this sudden nonchalance irks. Maybe it has to do with his own exhaustion. Without a doubt, he's been at this since his call last night, that part I understand. Still, would it hurt him to pause and ask for a minute? Do I always have to spell it out for him? Or maybe it's time we stop beating around the bush. So, right here, we're at -1. How's the investigation going? That helped a little bit. However, knowing Ashton, any attempts to push will only be met with an almost equal amount of bloody-minded aversion. Honestly, there are a lot of things he needs to hear at the moment, but bringing all those concerns out in the open will probably make me sound more of a pure asshole than a concerned friend. We're in the same boat after all. This is as difficult for him as it is for me, never mind the specifics, the hows, or the whys. We're both tired. Though unlike me, it's likely he hasn't gotten the chance to breathe easy since this whole thing began. Furthermore, Zachary isn't with him to listen like he always does. So if I could ease some of that burden off him by holding off on my sharp retorts and opinions, then for the time being I'll gladly do so.
How is it going, by the way? Any news?
The rustling from his side abruptly stops. All of a sudden, a hush sweeps over him, and immediately I recognize it. This is him mulling over how to best articulate his answers, how to weave together those little truths he's now ready to brave. Because doing so reveals too much of those fears, his weaknesses, and what he believes he failed to do. Unspoken as those may be, they echo louder in his silence. They all seep through the tiny cracks, beginning to show in that wall he keeps. It doesn't really last long enough to hold, and when he regains his bearings, the shelving returns with it, less urgent, milder than his actions earlier. A soft exhale and his exasperation comes at its heels.
Not good.
Not good, as in...
As in, we aren't getting anywhere, Rebecca.
What about the surveillance cameras? You said you were going to check those last night, didn't you? Can't you use them? It must have caught something.
Yeah, we got the footage we needed. Oh, shit.
Don't talk like that. They spent a good chunk of the taxpayers' money on those, didn't they?
More than they should have.
I'd be cheesed off if you can't even find any good use for it.
That's precisely what's frustrating about this. Those are top-of-the-line security cams. They're not supposed to just stop working. But that night they were all useless. The recording chose to fuck up the exact moment we needed them. How dumb is that?
His voice fades, gradually, swallowed by the constant din of traffic around him, along with the words and every implication they carry. If he has found other ways around this predicament, he leaves all of it unsaid or has already been lost in the hubbub around him. Ashton's disappointment is the only thing I hear when he finds his tongue.
The guys at Tech have been trying to clean the footage since it was turned over. No promises from them, though.
Another round of shuffling follows, papers being folded and stacked neatly together, then the sharp tapping of shoes against concrete. Soon a car door closes behind him with a heavy thunk, effectively shutting out the noise outside. However he looks or feels at present, whatever's bound to happen next, he won't allow the world to see his one weakness. Except the lull that ensues deafens more than... The lull that ensues deafens more than soothes. He is quiet for a long moment, with only his breathing breaking through the dense air every now and then. Although the line hasn't been cut off yet, I dare not speak. I've seen him like this before, and right now, even with the distance between us, forming a clear picture of him in my mind is easy. His head leaning against the steering wheel, hands gripping it like a lifeline, and his eyes shut tight in an effort to compose himself. He's angry. Not at what's happening around him.
Frankly, we can't move like this. We can't even find any witnesses. Those recordings are the only thing we've got. And if Tech can't fix those, if we can't even get anything out of it, without those, you've got no other leads. And this case is going to get dropped faster than a badly written police report.
But at himself.
If that happens, frankly, I've got no other choice but to let go of this. There's only so much I can do for her with all the red tape. Damn it.
No consolations, no words of encouragement. I don't offer him any, whether he's waiting for those or not. Those aren't what he wants to hear at the moment, despite himself. And sure enough, after another bout of silence and skirting around the topic, he finally asks, in a tense, small voice, too afraid of the answers lying ahead of one question, too wary of what people will see behind those walls already coming apart at the seams. But he permits it, permits me to see beyond it, if only for a short second.
How's she doing, by the way?
After all that, the least I can give him is a plain-spoken answer.
Comatose. Medically induced. She's on life support. They had no other choice. Surgery was stopped after a few hours because continuing would have been more fatal for her.
So, real quick to explain about this, I don't know if some people actually do know, but as long as you're actually alive on the table, your immune system is actually going to try to fight the surgeons. It's going to try to close the incisions they make and do stuff like that. And this actually happens quite a bit, where one of two scenarios will happen. Either this person has lost enough blood to where continuing will actually be dangerous and they have to close them up and wait for them to heal a certain degree before they can go back in there. Or the second one is inflammation will occur, and basically there'll be tissue swelling, stuff like that, that will actually impede progress. One example that I can think of, I can't remember the exact number, but someone got a few nails to the head, like 5 or 6. The surgeons got 5 of them out before the inflammation became so bad it threatened to damage the brain, and they had to actually stop working on the person, wait like 2 weeks for the swelling to go down so they could go back in and get the final nail. So if you didn't know, yeah, surgery is pretty complicated, which is why everyone gives brain surgery as one of those analogies for something really hard to do.
They were losing their options, and her chances were slim from the moment they brought her in. That she managed to make it this far is already a miracle.
That's a little too optimistic. Is that how they phrased it?
No, not exactly like that.
No, but they were praising all the duct tape they used on her for keeping her in one piece.
Just give it to me straight.
The doctors said... The doctors, they were... Last night was a miracle. But they said we shouldn't hope for another with how things are looking. They aren't going to do anything without our consent, of course, but it'd be best if we let her family know. Let them decide.
I see. I expected as much.
Have some faith in her. She'll get better. I wish I could tell those same words to him with the same certainty as Zach does, but we're people rarely swayed by blind optimism. Ashton especially. He's seen her last night. He's known the odds, even before the doctor saw her. It's very probably he's already steeled himself from the worst of it, even before the news came. This one might seem better. She's alive, she's still with us. When you look at it from his point of view, is there even any difference? With Zachary, it's easy to believe there is. It's not too difficult to hope. With Ashton, none of it is in his tone when he mutters a quick goodbye and cuts the call. In truth, I've hoped I'll somewhat be able to urge him to drop by and check on her. But as the last busy notes fades from my phone, chances of him ever doing that grow ever slim as well. He'll keep at this, and until he's exhausted all his efforts, it'll just be me and Zachary with her. The weight of that thought alone already feels staggering. If I have enough mental capacity to take this on right now, I'll gladly do so. Just to get everything over with. But the way things are, and I am now, I'll only end up doing more harm than good, both to myself and those around me. Besides, the more pressing matter is getting out of this place. Because when I look up from my phone and finally take in my surroundings, only an unfamiliar hallway greets me. Brightly lit as any other corridor here, though oddly void of people in the usual hospital clamor. No voices announcing over the intercom, no beeping from machines inside the rooms, not even a single patient waiting or the occasional doctor or nurse on their rounds. I must have taken a wrong turn somewhere while I'm busy worrying about those phone calls from earlier. That ought to teach me something.
Of all the places to get lost at.
I'd never thought much of hospitals before. They're a necessity. Walking alone in a deserted area inside one, however, with the walls coming off too white, too clean in my eyes, perhaps even too dull, I can't help but feel a bit queasy about it. A heavy, unsettling feeling lands on my stomach. It's a bit unnerving, but far more agreeable than the sensation of being watched I've been enduring these past few days. And I know I shouldn't do this here, but...
Hello? Anyone here?
Faint footsteps and a murmur of voices echo from somewhere. Still, no one responds to my call. It merely bounces off the walls before dwindling, until all I have for company is the sound of my footsteps. Admittedly, this is a little disconcerting. But for now I let the distant noises guide me as I walk along the empty corridor, looking for that exit that will lead me back to the main lobby or anyone I can ask for directions. A good minute passes. And another. I'm about to turn around and retrace my steps instead when... The sound of it makes me halt. It's a little muffled and infrequent, but grows louder after each passing second. With the hallway devoid of people, I don't have to strain my ears to pinpoint where it's coming from. Not too far ahead, in fact. Just past a sharp turn at the end of this corridor. And clearly, It's the voice of a child.
Who are you, Mother?
This is so damn loud. On a normal day, I won't concern myself with this, considering where I am. Hundreds come and go here every day, whatever business they have here, whether they arrived in tears or not. I've got nothing to do with it, and vice versa. Personally, I don't think a stranger's worry would do much when there are nurses and doctors already attending to them. But then also begs the question why a child is here crying. Possibly on her own. Did she happen to wander here like I did? If so, I can't just very well leave her here, can I? I can't even find my own way out. What more if it's a child? Though I'm quite sure the hospital's a safe place and the roaming staff will eventually find her. Who knows what else might happen if I just leave her here.
Mother, please. I don't want to be alone.
In any case, I don't have the heart to turn my back on this, not when this kid's just a few meters away from me. I might as well check on her, make their job easy, and bring her with me to the lobby where her parents can easily find her. It's not totally out of the way. So gingerly I seek her out, taking light, mindful steps as I approach where her sobs are coming from, hoping not to startle her. My caution, however, is ineffectual. The closer I get, the more frantic her sobs become. I try to ease her fears by calling out to her, but...
Hey! Hello there? Can you hear me? Mother, please! She's here! She's here, Mother! She's going to take me! I'm not going to hurt you. Are you lost? She won't leave, Mother! I'm heading back to the lobby. Do you want to come with me? Your mom could easily find you if we go there. Mother! I don't want to go with her. Tell her to go away. All right. Why don't we just find someone who can...
Suddenly, she cries out, and in a flash, her stifled sobs grow louder and more violent, fraught with fear and dread. It doesn't take too long for a little fact to register. I'm not the one she's talking to from the beginning. Whatever it is, she doesn't want the person with her in there.
Mother! Mother, she's here! Help!
I don't think twice. With all the haste I can gather, despite the weariness in my bones, I break into a run before panic sets in. Damn my own safety. But if something happens to that kid, not more than a few hours after Isabella's accident at that, I won't forgive myself. I may not have been able to do anything for Belle, but this one's right in front of me.
She's going to hurt me! Help me!
I won't just sit this one out like a useless person. Another scream ripples through the air as I near the bend. However, this time her sobs die down along with it. A wave of cold creeps through my whole body as the entire corridor goes wholly silent. Quiet has never been a good thing in situations like this. In 3 more steps, I make it around the corner, bag ready in my hand, only to be greeted by a wall the moment I turn into the adjoining hall. A dead end. It takes me a few slow moments to take it all in, despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. No sign of the girl or whoever's with her. Just an empty alcove, and a single painting sitting on a bare wall.
Where did they...
A quick scan of the area reveals nothing, not even a hint of a scuffle. The only way out here would have been the sliding door standing adjacent to me, but even that looks untouched, bolted shut to boot. The corridor I've just passed through seems to be the only way to get here, apart from that door. I would have met them if they tried to leave. I'm far from having Ashton's keen observation, but that certainly didn't sound like a simple tantrum to just shove under the rug and forget about. Anyone making a desperate cry like that would have left things in disarray.
Especially a child.
Yet I'm the only one standing here, in the presence of a painting that looks to be mocking me and the absurdity of my actions. Although to be fair, the real Lady Charlotte Ermengarde probably won't be doing any of that sort. Local history has constantly written and spoken of the one fondly, endured to everyone much like her parents. The beloved child and heir up until she took her own life. A pity, but that's a lesson for another day. Above my worries over what I heard in finding that child, I've yet to find a proper way out of here. Thankfully, I don't have to fret over it longer. Soon another voice calls out from the opposite end of the hall, one of the custodial staff, from a little I could glean of his uniform at this distance. He doesn't bother hiding the annoyance in his tone. From the sound of it, this doesn't appear to be the first time someone unconsciously ended up here.
You there! What are you doing?
I'm sorry. I think I took a wrong turn somewhere.
Well, wherever it is you want to go, it isn't there.
I'm really sorry. I heard someone crying here and I thought...
Lady, this place is off limits to the public. Has been since a month ago. Closed off for renovations. Didn't you see the signs back there? Next time, learn to read.
Figures to be a teacher who can't read, you know?
It won't happen again.
Whatever. Get out of here, lady. Exit's back there, second turn on your right. Don't let me catch you here again.
Otherwise, he'll break your knees, Rebecca. Strange, though. He doesn't wait around for me to leave and walks off after saying his piece. I'm not certain if it's because he's simply tired of having to fend off unauthorized personnel from roaming in here, or he's just gotten to the point that he no longer cares anymore. Shaking my head, I step back from the alcove and prepare to head out, but not before taking a glance at it again. I'm not even sure anymore what I'm expecting to see before me.
Oh, must be the wind.
So without another look, I leave it alone. Damn, lady, you need a toothbrush. That smile sucks. Okay, I missed some lines here. Coming home feels like a lame attempt at normalcy, a false return to it. Although what surprised me more is how easily falling back into my usual routine is, after I forcefully tucked all my worries away. For the rest of the afternoon, against what I've told Zachary before leaving, I've busied myself with every unimportant, mindless task I can get a hold of. What can I do? Sleep simply isn't that easy to come by at the moment. By the time the sun sits well over the horizon, much of the work I've got scheduled today has been finished. All that's left for me to deal with is the mail. Even Isabella's family has been given notice of the accident, regardless of how I felt about doing so this morning. It didn't take too much effort, actually. The words I've been turning around in my head, the same ones I've been dreading to deliver, have long since lost their meaning after that little call with Ashton. Now they're just phrases, syllables meaning nothing. Her mom took it well in spite of that, but if there's more to the unruffled reaction she gave, it's one thing she doesn't let show.
So very much like Isabella.
Is this because of the kind of life she has back home? Not that I'll ever fully understand. I'm my parents' only child. We aren't well off, but so far I've lived a relatively easy life. I didn't have to think about bills or food for the next day, or paying for any of my siblings' tuition on top of my own, or supporting a sick father's medication. All I have to worry about were my grades, if it gained Mom and Dad's approval, or what we'd be having for dinner. When put next to hers, they'll pale in comparison. They look less like problems and more like petty issues this way.
Petty issues?
But as unimportant as it all sounds, sometimes its ugly head rears at the most inappropriate moments. And sometimes they come through your mailbox in the form of a fancy-looking letter, pretty ribbons and all. Whoever sent this has spent silly money on the envelope alone. Virgin and ridiculous, really. I can already imagine Isabella wrinkling her nose if she sees this. Then she'll complain about unnecessary expenses and rich people problems. I'm almost afraid to touch it myself. As if simply brushing a hand against its crisp surface will be enough to put a crease on it, and be a terrible slight to the sender. But as extravagant as I find this, it isn't really the first time I've received one. Most of the time it's not even for me, so who am I to complain? Either way, no look of surprise crosses my face once I flip the envelope over to see my parents' names written in a neat script.
Nothing new then.
Their years in the academe naturally brought with it various connections. People from other fields, art, science, business, politics, you name it. This one, though, gives off a much personal vibe. Letters like this usually come from old students, people who have grown fond of my parents, and they, in turn, treat like children of their own. I've only met a few of them. Most have moved on to become successful in their chosen careers, and little letters like this are their way of expressing gratitude. It's one thing Mom and Dad are proud of, rightfully so, and I'm happy for them. But there are times I wish they'll remember they have a daughter here. The real one. Not that's of any importance now. It's not like they didn't raise me well and provided for me. They did. Otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am now if it weren't for their hard work. And like a dutiful child, I do everything I can to give back. Even just the small thing is letting them know they've got another mail waiting for them. The phone rings for a good minute before someone answers, Mom, her voice as warm as I remember.
Becca?
Hi, Mum. How's the conference going?
Well enough. Until your dad sprained his ankle.
Oh no, is it bad?
I'm alright. In case anyone in this family cares to listen, I'm alright. Very much alive, darling.
And there you have it. He'll be up and walking in a few weeks, don't worry. We're going to have to extend our stay here until it heals, though. Is something the matter?
Nothing big. Just that mail arrived for you. I got it last night, but things happened.
A lie? Thankfully she doesn't notice. Although if I'm going to be honest, a small part of me yearns for her to do so and ask me about it. But I put down that idea almost as soon as it surfaces. I shouldn't make them fret, they're busy.
What does it say?
Raise your glasses, give cheers to the good times, blah blah.
Becca manners. That isn't how I taught you to read.
Sorry. You are cordially... it's an invitation, Mum, for a housewarming party. From, Hannah?
The name rings a bell, though at the moment I can't recall when or where I've heard it recently. Must be nothing too important if I didn't bother committing it to memory. There are a lot of Hannahs in the world, so who knows?
Hannah.
She also wrote you a note, Mum. It says you used to be her private tutor at the Evans mansion, and that she misses you and would love to see you two again.
It makes my heart clench to hear another person openly say those words to them, the same ones I want to tell them. I want to see you too. It's been years since we've been together as family, and if there's one thing that hasn't changed from childhood, it's that Mom and Dad are still busy with their careers. Out of the country, away on some meeting or symposium, sometimes for months on end. It only grew more frequent with the years until I'm old enough to live on my own. I'd like to think that's how I become independent at such an early age. They've always praised me for that. At times, I wish they didn't.
Evans? Oh, I remember now. Honey, it's Hannah. Hannah Evans. Remember? Bright girl, 2 years older than Becca.
Didn't she get married a few years ago? 7 now, I think. But, they grow up so fast, these kids.
Yeah, she invited us to that too. Fonte de Medici. But we missed that one because you had to present your paper in Singapore.
We did send her a note after. Still a shame we couldn't attend, though. What is it about this time?
She sent another invite for a housewarming party. Becca, when is it?
This Friday, Mum.
Oh, that's too bad. We'd love to be there, but Da's not in a condition to go walking around. I guess we'd have to decline again. I really miss that girl.
I could go in your place.
I let it slip without thinking. Personally, I've never been fond of gatherings, regardless of how simple people make it seem. But if there's one thing I hate hearing, that disappointing note in Mom's voice always ranks first. Whether it's directed at me or some other thing doesn't matter.
Are you sure? Don't you have work this Friday?
The event will be in the evening, Mum. It shouldn't take anything away from my schedule. It's all right. The invite's for 2 people. I can bring someone with me so things don't get boring.
I see. Maybe you can also invite Ashton?
Mum, that's a sure no from him. He hates attending parties. But I'll see what I can do. If not, I can always bring... I can always go alone. I'm a big girl now. I can handle these things. This isn't too much of a big deal.
Okay, if it's not going to be a big problem for you, I don't see why not. We owe you this one, darling.
No problem, Mum. I'll even say hi to Hannah for you.
Please do. And let her know we'd love to see her once we're back in the city. Leave her a number or something.
I will.
But you know, the 2 of you would have become really good friends. Don't you remember? You met with her once. If my memory serves me right, you were 12 then?
This too, I can't recall. It's probably one of those meetings where we only talked a bit before going our ways. If she did leave an impression, I'm pretty sure I would have written about it somewhere, or at least recognized her name. As it is, the only few people I remember clearly from that time in my life is Ashton and Mandy. To some extent. Mom must have sensed my confusion because she laughs.
Don't push yourself too hard, darling. Really? It felt like having 2 daughters back then. Sometimes I wish they didn't send her away to boarding school. But, well, you know how often that goes with them. Still, try talking to her while you're there.
Oh, we'll see. I'll let you know what happens after.
I'm looking forward to it, darling. Take care of yourself.
Will do. You too, Mom. Bye. Tell Da to be careful next time.
She chuckles then. A hearty one, tender and always light on my ears. She may be a stern teacher, but this is the part of her I love the most. The sound of it still echoes even as their call comes to an abrupt end, bringing with it a memory from so many years ago. When life and responsibilities that accompany adulthood are things far from our minds. If given the chance, I'd love to go back to those. I don't dwell on it though, shaking it all away almost as soon as the memory forms a clear picture in my head. I've always wondered how Isabella can easily pretend everything's normal over a phone call, then bounce back to her usual self immediately after. I've seen her do it plenty of times. For me, it just drains whatever energy I have. Soon the exhaustion I've been keeping at bay since last night rushes over me, creeping to my tired bones, weighing heavily on my sore muscles. Here and now I allow it. And with another night I'm about to spend at her bedside, watching over her, waiting for that tiny bit of miracle to happen. I can't afford to stay like this. Bloody hell, Zachary will know in a heartbeat if I didn't follow up on that promise. So, with another sigh, I put everything in the back of my mind and tread back to my room. A long night waits ahead of me. 4 hours later, I'm heading back out after a short nap, ready and dressed for a different waiting game at the hospital. An empty traveling bag dangles freely in my hand as I head straight for Isabella's room first, unlocking the door with a copy of the key. She lent it years ago after I complained about the mess and offered my help in cleaning up. I thought the gesture was completely unnecessary back then. After all, I could always knock. But she never bothered taking them from me, always returning or turning away from the conversation whenever I insist. At one point, I've simply stopped trying to hand it back to her. Who would have thought I'd be using it for this purpose?
Isabella, I'm coming into your flat, all right? Your aunt asked me to bring you a few of your things. Don't worry, I won't touch that thing you've been hiding under your bed.
So, as innuendo-like as that may sound, remember that's her art supplies and her sketch pad. Laughable, this vain attempt at courtesy when there are no ears on the other side to listen to them. So without waiting for the answer she's not here to give, I push the door open and step inside. Her unit's still a mess. Instant noodle cups on the table, pile of clothes on one side, papers strewn about everywhere, and an unkempt bed among other things. This much is a given. Will always be a given. I've been here several times already, and I still wonder how she can function like a human being with the place in this state. She even bothered turning off her telly last night before leaving. Now it's filling the room with even more depressing news.
The authorities are still trying to find the cause of death for all the victims. Early investigation revealed most of them were employed under Briar Realty Corporation at the time of death. Meanwhile, BRC has refused to comment on this.
Sighing, I reach for the remote to turn it off. No more of that. We've got plenty of negativity going around us right now. Besides, she'll definitely complain about the electric bill if I just leave it, even if it's entirely her fault. However, that's neither here nor there. This little detour isn't for this. It's for her aunt. A little request from her if we can bring a few of Isabella's stuff. So I'll read this for you guys. Hi, thanks for letting me know about this. I'll be by in a few days. Just need to sort things out with my work. If it won't be too much to ask, you'd bring her a few of her stuff to the hospital? Only for 2 or 3 days, so I can head straight there. Thanks. Just for 2 or 3 days, to make caring for her easier once she takes over from us. She doesn't elaborate much. The message itself is short and direct. No mention of the accident or even Isabella's name. But the mere lack of it holds enough gravity. It speaks of the things we all dread facing in the next few days and the little truths we'll have to ease into after. Both of us know this isn't a one-day thing. It may last weeks, months, bloody hell, some even continue on for years. Thinking of those numbers alone drains the optimism out of me, but I refuse to wallow on them. Think of what Zachary said instead. He's right. He has a point we've all known about her years ago. She's stubborn.
And she might make it through because of it.
The odds are, so to speak, astronomical. But she's beaten worse before. She might not even need that miracle the doctor so blatantly told us to avoid hoping for. If she tries hard enough, she'll probably win this over with willpower and nothing else. If that ever happens, as unsightly as it may make me seem, I will laugh at their faces. Just imagine how my go brings a smile to my face for the first time. Somehow it calms, and the whole task of packing what little essentials she might need becomes less of a chore. In less than half an hour, I'm done. Before leaving, I spare Isabella's room one last glance, disturbingly quiet now without her in it. I'll get a chance to scold her for this mess later. Then we'll argue about it like we often do, like normal. But for the moment, my concerns are best left here. She doesn't need those right now.